Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Khalees Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte. We are inching ever closer to the 14th Annual March for the Food Bank, November 20th and 21st. 43 miles from Springfield to Greenfield, and today we'll have no shortage of ways for you to learn about how hunger impacts our region along those miles and what you can do about it. There may or may not even be a way to visit a couple of Northampton wine shops and literally drink wine to fight hunger. We'll hear more during our Wine Thunderdome at State Street, and we'll hear about the largest potato farm in Massachusetts and how their tubular tubers are total spuds when it comes to supporting the Food Bank of Western Mass.
Our guest is smiling, and I'm just.
Aren't you glad I didn't make you make that joke, Khalees? I had originally thought about it, but then.
And it's Live Music Friday, but even Live Music Friday is an opportunity to learn about ways to fight hunger as we welcome the Forest Avenue String Band, who are performing a benefit for the Stone Soup Cafe in Greenfield, the only place on the weekend for free hot meals for people who need it in the city. We'll also talk with Stone Soup's executive director and executive chef, Kirsten Levitt.
But first, Lev Ben Ezra, the executive director of the Amherst Survival Center, one of the many food pantries and meal sites that we visit on the March for the Food Bank.
I love joining the Amherst Survival Center in January of 2019, finding that this is the perfect place to combine her passion for social justice, her commitment to making resources to meet basic needs accessible for all, and her skill bringing people together to accomplish big goals. Thanks for joining us in studio this time.
I know. Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
We had a chance to talk to you in March about your Empty Bowls program, but now we just get to talk to you about all the general things that the Amherst Survival Center does, which is really cool.
And we just came off of the cusp of a fundraiser you did that was also walking-based, the Hike for Hunger. Tell us about that and the success of that event.
It was fabulous. This was our 4th annual Hike for Hunger, and throughout the month of October, we had more than 90 hikers who hit the trails at their own pace and all throughout the month, all around the Western Mass and the state and elsewhere, and then reached out to their friends and family for support to bring resources into the food and nutrition programs at the Amherst Survival Center. And it was amazing. It is certainly at a slightly different scale than the Food Bank's March, but we were very, very excited. The event raised more than $37,000, and that will all go directly to our food programs.
Not to take away from your total, but you've been here a total of like 2 minutes, and you're already scoring with the homonym scale for the hike, going up.
Oh, yeah. There we go. I like that.
Good job.
Wordplay.
Yes, we reached our summit.
The Amherst Survival Center is right sort of on the cusp of the perimeter of UMass Amherst. And I think a lot of people think about, Amherst is such an affluent, wealthy community. How could hunger ever exist in a place like that? But the more you learn about hunger, you realize it is in every community. Tell us about the community that the Amherst Survival Center is working with.
Yeah, so the Amherst Survival Center really first and foremost is a community center where people are welcome to come and connect and share resources, and where we have a number of different programs that can help people meet their basic needs. And that includes free meals 4 days a week, free groceries. We have a free walk-in medical clinic. We have a resource center so that staff and volunteers from other organizations are available to do things like help folks enroll in fuel assistance or sign up for SNAP benefits or access Salvation Army vouchers for clothing and housewares and those kinds of things. And then we also have community activities, and all of this is made possible through a really incredible community effort involving more than 200 volunteers every week in our team of staff and community supporters and donors that bring food and financial contributions and everything in between. So it is a really incredible community effort. And when we think about the specific community of Amherst and who we're serving, you're absolutely right that a lot of folks think that we wouldn't have the levels of food insecurity that we have in Amherst. But in fact, Amherst is a community where there absolutely is very significant wealth, and there is also really significant poverty. And the poverty rates and, not surprisingly, the food insecurity rates are actually significantly higher in Amherst than in the county, Hampshire County as a whole. But as you were saying, food insecurity and economic poverty is something that exists in all of our communities. And at the Amherst Survival Center, we serve people from and we serve people from everywhere. And our food pantry, which is the only program that has any geographic restriction, serves folks from 13 towns. So we're really bringing folks in who need help to make ends meet.
I think that those wealth disparities often tend to hide how important centers like this and how how saturated those insecurity issues really are in communities like that. Not to mention UMass being there and there being an ongoing adjunct crisis, but that's another issue altogether. But I think it's tied in there. You mentioned a free walk-in health clinic, which is kind of amazing. How did you get that started and identify that as a really important part of this ongoing battle against hunger?
Yeah, so I had nothing to do with getting it started.
Organization.
Yes. It was started actually prior to the Amherst Survival Center even being in the building that we're in currently. The Amherst Survival Center was in a small basement space, and my understanding is that the clinic was actually started and was in the then executive director's office. And her desk was a table or a board that was then put over the exam table.
Was this when Mindy Dahm was the executive director?
No,
okay,
this
before
was
that?
Cheryl Zoll.
Okay,
yeah.
right, yes.
But the health center and healthcare in Massachusetts has come a really long way in the 15 years since the health clinic at the Amherst Survival Center has been around, and still there is such a critical gap in access. Even though we have one of the highest insured rates in the country, there are still people who both aren't insured, and also there are so many people who are not connected to a medical home, or even if they have insurance, can't afford the copays or can't get to the appointment or can't, make all these various connections that then are really required. And so having this kind of free walk-in access really means that people have access to care for everything from wound care to getting follow-up if they are diabetic and need to check their sugars or want to talk about their current medication regimen, to folks who are really needing referrals for much more advanced specialist care or lab work or other things. So it's a really critical need that gets met.
We're speaking with Lev Ben Ezra, who is the executive director of the Amherst Survival Center. And it is a survival center in multifaceted ways, as we're learning about right now. But it is a food pantry and a meal site. And the March for the Food Bank is coming up. You've done your own incredible fundraiser that raised over $37,000 for the specific needs of the Amherst Survival Center, which is one of about 175 partner agencies that work with the food bank. But what is your relationship as the Survival Center with the Food Bank of Western Mass?
So at the core of who we are and what we do is our food and nutrition programs. And we're on track at this point in 2023 to provide 1.4 million meals prepared in groceries to between 9,500 and 10,000 people. So we're providing a really enormous food resource and improving the food security of our community. And we could not do that without our partnership with the food bank. So the way that I always describe our relationship is one of true partnership, that the food bank brings incredible food resources into the community, both through their connections and ability to garner USDA and BFAP foods, which are the state and federal sources of government-funded food for programs like ours, and also all of the donations that they broker with retail establishments and then food that they purchase and are able to do so in significant bulk that we receive for free and are able to distribute that. And then we, like all of the other 170 member organizations or partner organizations that you're referring to, really are that last mile of getting the food to the community, getting the food to people who need it. So this last year, the food bank provided more than $1.5 million worth of food to the Amherst Survival Center that we were able to access. It amounted for more than half of the food that we distribute overall, and about 2/3 of the food that goes through our food pantry comes from the food bank. So we really, we would not be able to do what we're doing. There's no way to make up that gap. We would not be able to do the work that we do without our partnership with the food bank.
It's interesting that you mentioned that you're going to that you've given out 1.5 million meals over the last year. If we raise the amount of money we're aiming for on the March for the Food Bank, that is the amount of meals that would be covered. So it's you could think of it, if you wanted to participate, you could provide all the meals through the Amherst Survival Center by supporting the March for the Food Bank. Lev Ben Ezra, it's always a fun part for me to see you when we're on that march, because I know that I'm about halfway done with the last day, amongst other things. But it's always a wonderful pit stop, and it's always a great community. And there are people that are there getting ready for what, their Thanksgivings or whatever they'll be celebrating that particular day when we're there on the Tuesday, the 21st. What's the great need that Amherst Survival Center has right now that you could use support for from our community?
I think the key piece that I want the community to be aware of is that the need is growing. I think that a lot of folks were really aware of rising food insecurity throughout the pandemic. And the reality, the really sad reality, is that we are actually seeing now about 40% more people every month than we saw in the highest surges, the busiest months that we saw at any time in 2021 or 2022. It is more than that and higher. So as folks in the community are thinking about this issue and wanting to help, I really invite support for the Amherst Survival Center, for the Food Bank, for other partner organizations. We need volunteers. We need financial donations. We need donations of food. And we also want folks to know that if free meals or free groceries would be helpful for your family, that we are here. So we would love to meet you. amherstsurvival.org.
And you can meet us on the road there in real time if you follow along on the March for the Food Bank. Lev Ben Ezra, the Executive Director of the Amherst Survival Center, thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been great to talk to you.
Yay.
Later in the show, Live Music Friday with the Forest Avenue String Band, who are doing a benefit for another organization fighting hunger, Stone Soup Cafe in Greenfield.
And we'll find out how you can drink wine and fight hunger during our Wine Thunderdome at State Street in Northampton.
Up next, how a potato farm was taken by eminent domain by the city of Northampton, but this farm is no spectator when it comes to using their spuds for good.
My gosh. We're listening to the fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM. What's your favorite way to have your potatoes?
I do love mashed potatoes.
Time for a local hero spotlight with Phil Corman from CISA, the local hero, folks, and Diane Szawlowski, a legendary name in the area, Mullins. Szawlowski, for people that live in this part of the world, equals potatoes, I think, in a lot of people's minds, including mine.
Yep.
First question for you, Diane. Last week was Halloween, and I was seeing all this stuff trending about people giving out potatoes as an option instead of candy on Halloween. Even a friend's house who I went to in Montague Center had potatoes as an option instead of candy. Is this something that you as a potato farming family are seeing arise?
Well, I did see that as well. A little too late, unfortunately, and did give out candy. But from what I understand, kids are choosing the potato over candy when there's an option. I don't know. At Easter time, people were coloring potatoes instead of eggs. And then one other interesting thing, the Northampton High School field hockey team had a little Halloween party at practice, and they painted small pumpkins and potatoes.
That's fun.
That is fun.
This versatile world of potatoes.
And they're adorable, actually, some of the creations.
For those who aren't familiar with Szawlowski and your family, tell us about the history and where your farm is and all that.
Well, our farm is based in Hatfield now. It was originally Northampton, Massachusetts. My great-grandfather, J.R. Szawlowski, immigrated from Poland and started the farm, incorporated it in 1910. I'm fourth generation, and there's fifth generation working still. It originally started in Northampton. I used to work there when it was in Northampton. I used to go to the market with my father, the Springfield Produce Market, hang bags on a machine in an old packing shed there. And then in the early 1970s, the city of Northampton took the farm by eminent domain. It's where the industrial park is now and where the Coca-Cola plant is. I think they're moving, but anyway, and then moved to Hatfield, found a location in Hatfield, and we've been there ever since.
What was that like for the family to lose the farm by eminent domain to the city of Northampton?
It was very difficult. In fact, my grandfather didn't survive the move. He passed away shortly before we actually moved, but it was sad. A lot of memories there. It was hard, but it was actually, the Szawlowskis are very tough people and can take the incoming. And so moved to Hatfield, and actually there was a lot of growth that happened after that period.
Now you're going to take Coca-Cola back by eminent domain since
That
they're
would
going
be
to skip
the
town anyway. We're going
ultimate
to
prize.
pull out Coca-Cola and put in potatoes.
Just want a photo, and at the bottom the caption just says "Booyah." Whenever we go out and we see this piece of equipment, it looks like kind of the most fun, terrifying thing. But do you get to drive the potato tractors?
No,
I'm so
when I was a kid,
sorry.
I don't drive them. I have been on them, the harvesters, and inside the sprayers. I think that's probably the one that you think is really weird. That's up really high.
Yeah, they're like 2 stories high.
Yeah.
You could drive a car easily
Yeah.
right underneath
The
them.
Yeah.
tires are as tall as
Yeah.
we are.
Yeah.
So, Diane, I'm always fascinated by families that can actually work and live together, because my family's done pretty well, but we're all sort of control freaks, and like you can't have 2 of us in the same place working. So I'm kind of curious, like, so your father's generation, there were 5 brothers.
4 brothers.
4
yeah.
brothers, and then
2
there's
sisters.
many daughters involved in this current generation. Can you just share a little bit, like, how does a family really run a business like this and make it work?
Yeah, well, I think that with my father and his brothers, they each had their own lane. You know, each one had their own specialty. My father was he was probably more like the businessman. He, really started the direct selling to customers and, purchased more land and kind of took the initiative to expand. And then my Uncle Chet was like a really brilliant mechanic, farmer, operator of the equipment. John was farming. He did the integrated pest management, spraying stuff. And Stanley had his specialty. He drove truck and did seed cutting and so forth. So they all had their own thing. And that's really how it is now as well. We each have our own kind of specialty. My sister Shelley's like the real estate person and operations gal. And Melanie, who was a former teacher, is in the office keeping everything straight and making sure the orders are precise. And my background was in communications, believe it or not. And so that's why I came into it, to help with marketing and branding and stuff like that initially. And then it kind of grew into business development and sales. And now I'm doing all kinds of special projects and more operations and stuff too.
Well, the marketing has been pretty good. If I said that when I hear the name Szawlowski, I think potatoes, and that is your bread and butter, or I guess potato and butter. We're speaking with...
Just potatoes, no butter.
Oh, I love butter. Yeah, come on. Baked potato with butter and salt and pepper. Come on, that's about the best thing there is. Diane Szawlowski-Mullins, who is the sales marketing public relations lead for Szawlowski Potato Farm. How big is the farm? And is it all potatoes?
Yeah, we do just grow potatoes. We have, well, it varies because we lease land as well, and we swap, and we have partnerships with other growers who grow for us under our umbrella. We are one of the largest farms in the state. We also have growers that we contract with on the eastern shore of Virginia, so their crops are ready like a month before ours. So it is big. I mean, we have around 2,000 acres of our own, but then with all the others, coming into the mix, it's a lot under production.
Those other farms that you have contracts with that will allow you to have potatoes in a more year-round fashion, so there isn't really a lull in any of your production time.
Even with the partnerships and the contracts with other growers, we still have gaps. And depending on the year, the crop isn't always bountiful enough to store. And so there is a period of time where we do bring potatoes in from other farms across the country. And this year is going to be one of those years where we're not going to have.
Due to the flooding?
Yeah, we had a really rough year.
Tell us a little bit more specifically about how the flooding impacted Szawlowski's.
Well, greatly. Last year was a really good year. We had excellent quality, and the weather was, even though it was dry, it was favorable. We would actually prefer dry. This year, when, that July 10th event happened, we were okay until then, and then, it was the flood where we lost 350 to 400 acres under river water, and then it continued to rain.
Yeah.
So there was...
Continues to rain.
And it continues to rain.
Continues to rain.
Which is why we're still not finished harvesting. We're finishing this week. So yes, we lost a lot of our crop this year.
We're speaking with Diane Szawlowski-Mullins, who works with Szawlowski Potato Farm in Hatfield. It is the largest potato farm in Massachusetts, according to Phil Corman and CISA, the local hero folks.
I'm really curious about the decision, obviously, maybe a couple of decades ago, to move the business in a way vertically, to integrate it to become a potato packing supplier.
So we had invested in packing equipment that was, for our own personal use. And, it was really, my father drove this aspect of the growth. We had the ability to pack potatoes, and we had a very loyal customer base, and we're located geographically, strategically, very close to a very densely populated portion of the country. In the Northeast, potatoes come from Maine, Canada, Idaho. So we decided to try that, and we've been doing that. So we'll bring them in from Maine after, our season's done, or Prince Edward Island, or in the Wisconsin area, reds from North Dakota, and we bring them in and repack them. It's harder to make money doing that. We do it to keep our employees employed throughout the year, and to keep our customers supplied. We're trying to make it more profitable, but it's not easy. We have a lot of people that depend on us for employment, and not just the people working in the packing house, but the truck drivers, the vendors who sell us the packaging and the fuel, and there's all kinds of things that are coming into our plant.
And who brought the solar panels to the operation?
Yeah, that was, Shelley was spearheaded that back in around 2010, I believe. We have the panels on all of our buildings, and we have a solar farm in Whately. We had some land that wasn't the best for growing, so we have a little solar farm over there that
helps out.
Yeah.
Does subcontracting some of those other farms also allow you to bring in more types of potatoes that people ask for?
There's 4 varieties, basic varieties that we grow: white, like the round white, russet, yellow or gold potato, and reds. But it's interesting, the consumption of white potatoes has decreased. It used to be the biggest. It's just demographics. It's aging out of the older population, like Eastern European population in the area that love their white potatoes. And gold now is the big mover.
Is there anything nutritionally different between the different types of potatoes that you mentioned?
No, there's not. But I think that people tend to leave the skins on, like the reds and the golds.
Yeah.
And, that gives you, it's more fiber. But I think it's really driven from food service, restaurants. I think that's where it starts, the trends, and then people go home and, they have their Yukon Gold mashed potatoes, and all of a sudden they're making Yukon Gold mashed potatoes instead of white mashed potatoes.
But also, don't make Yukon Gold mashed potatoes, y'all. Don't use waxy potatoes for mash, use russets.
I had some russet potato chips over the weekend. We're talking potatoes with Diane Szawlowski-Mullins.
They're great for frying. They're great for fries.
Oh, yeah.
But not for mashing.
Let's talk about that, because I do know a couple restaurants in the area that swear by Szawlowski for their French fries. What are some of the restaurants that you work with locally?
Well, Fish Tails in Hatfield has in the past, and I think Highbrow in Northampton.
I think Local might.
Local is the one
does.
I was thinking of. That they
Local
make
Burger.
great fries,
Yes.
and Local Burger swears by their Szawlowskis.
Yes, they do. And then I also the Philos.
Philos. That was the number 2,
Philos.
and I love both of their
Philos.
fries.
They use a lot of our potatoes. And Florence Pizza. Yeah, it's the same ownership.
So when we're talking to restaurants and they're saying, well, we want to start thinking about sourcing local, we don't know how we're going to get some of it, we usually say, well, there's a couple of easy things to start with. And Swaz potatoes is always right there. It's it's available, it's grown here, price point works well, et cetera, et cetera. Since farms do donate food and also sell to the food bank.
And since the March for the Food Bank is coming up in less than 2 weeks.
And we sponsor that
Oh,
every year.
thanks.
And we are doing it again this year, by the way.
Excellent.
We scaled back a little bit just because of the circumstances.
Yeah,
but
rough
we are,
year.
People are going to have to bring their own potatoes
I know,
on the
right?
market.
And paint them
But
themselves.
we've always support. We have a very strong relationship with the Food Bank of Western Massachusetts, Greater Boston Food Bank, and really appreciate the partnership. And in the past, we've donated a lot. This year, not as much. We will continue to do that. It's important to us.
Diane Szawlowski-Mullins from Szawlowski Potato Farm. moving from Northampton via eminent domain to Hatfield, but really making...
Also, like, the circumstances of eminent domain happening in, like, the 70s, people don't necessarily think of that as a 20th century thing.
I know, right?
Like,
Yeah, it wasn't like they were putting a railroad in there. They were putting Coca-Cola in there.
Yeah,
Right?
An industrial plant.
But you've really continued the legacy of this fifth-generation farm and being an active member of the community, donating to the food bank, making sure neighbors have enough to eat. Thank you for doing all that. And to Phil Corman from CISA, the local hero, folks. Phil, who is right by the side of the cart for a large swath of the March for the Food Bank.
Swaz.
A large Swaz of the March for the Food Bank.
No,
Swaz
it's catching
it's the
again.
nickname for Swazlowski. You can find out about all of our local heroes and about their impact on fighting hunger by going to buylocalfood.org. Later in the show, Live Music Friday with the Forest Avenue String Band, who are doing a benefit for Stone Soup Cafe in Greenfield. We'll also talk with Stone Soup's director, Kirsten Levitt.
But first, que sera?
Syrah, Shiraz, below the equator at least.
And more homonyms with the Wine Thunderdome at State Street in Northampton.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM. In public radio, we are not allowed to give a direct call to action for people to go and do anything other than, strangely, to donate to public radio.
Give us money.
We can do that whenever we want.
Oh, yeah.
But if we were to say, hypothetically, suggest that you could go to two particular stores in Northampton and Florence, respectively, and spend, let's say, $100, that would come with a bag that had all sorts of goodies in it, including wine and other alcoholic beverages and snacks and gift certificates and things like that. But that 100% of that $100 would hypothetically go to, say, the Food Bank of Western Massachusetts, just off the cuff. We couldn't say, go to State Street in Northampton or Cooper's in Florence and get these bags that
What
would
if you
support
were
them.
hypothetically walking by on the street and you were like, what are those green bags inside of State Street and Cooper's? You could hypothetically walk in and be like, excuse me.
Well, anybody who's not in public radio can do that whenever.
Oh, okay, I see.
But we-
Oh, yeah. Oh, I see.
And now you, when you're with us,
Yes.
can't also
Oh.
say that on public radio.
Oh, I see.
It's just interesting, I think.
Odd set of rules.
I imagine somebody doing something like that.
I know, it's, yeah.
It seems like such a nice idea.
Yeah, a bunch of
Wouldn't it be
do-gooders-
great?
bunch of do-gooders raising money for, a thing that people need.
You too can make this dream come true.
Yeah, wouldn't it be cool if you could exchange money that would go to make food happen for people who need it and get booze in return?
That actually is a really great idea. What could we possibly do to make that happen?
You
I don't know.
I haven't the slightest idea. I usually just spend money and just get booze.
Imagine if you drop $100, get a bunch of things you wanted to have, and feed 40 families.
Imagine. But that is not why we're here.
No one wants to drink wine today.
In the Wine Bunker, deep below State Street Fruit Store, deli wines and spirits with the Wine Sun and the Yankee Sippa. And what are we going to drink in the Wine Thunderdome today, Wine Sun?
Syrah.
Que sera, sera.
Or Shiraz.
Shiraz. Australians call it Shiraz.
Yes, they
You
do.
say it with a little Boston accent, and it sounds like you're cursing someone out.
Sounds like your Aunt Shiraz.
Got a nice Shiraz for you.
Sure as the sun will shine.
Oh no.
Oh no.
One Syrah, one Shiraz.
Okay, same great.
Two different countries, two really great examples. This is going to be a tough decision.
It always is.
The Syrah we're having is a Crozet Hermitage, which is Northern Rhone. There are 5 great Northern Rhone appellations. They all can only do Syrah. With some of them can do a little bit of Marsanne and
Roussillon?
Roussillon, yes, of course. So there's Hermitage, Crozet Hermitage, which is the one that we're having, Cornas, Saint-Joseph, and Côte-Rôtie. Hermitage is this literally one hill on the Rhone surrounding this tiny town, and it's the top of this hill. It's about 130 hectares, so it is usually very expensive. It is considered one of the best expression of Syrah in the world. People in Australia might contest that. And then Crozet Hermitage is the surrounding hills, or like the sort of crescent-shaped hills around that. And then the Tourbrec, I'll let him discuss.
This is
So
the
you're that new world, I don't know.
This is the Australian one.
It is.
Australian for beer, mate.
No.
Foster's Australian for beer.
The Tourbrec, and this particular cuvee has always been known as the Woodcutter's Shiraz, is from the Barossa Valley, and Barossa Valley is sort of the premier place in Australia, in southeastern Australia more specifically, to grow Shiraz, and known for big, full-bodied, jammy-style wines, and we're going to get all of that here.
Okay, so this is going to be a real stylistic thing. Like, I could probably tell you now which one I'm going to like better because of what I know of my own palate. However, I'm open to everything.
I'm open to everything. I'm more open than he is.
Oh, please.
Yeah, I'm not open at all, so let's pour.
Also get some snacks to have with it. What are we having?
We didn't have any French sausage, so I got some nice sopressat and some smoked Gouda, which are classic cheese pairings.
I think by the sort of rule of thumb that we're going to start dry and end a little bit sweeter. So we're going to start with the Crozet Hermitage, the Paul Jaboulet.
It's Moulin Noir. It just means black mule.
Oh, it's not just a clever
It
translation.
it means black mule. And then, but if you know anything about Syrah, when you pour this, it is a black skin grape. It is very dark, but also, if you look at it, it has a beautiful sort of ruby rim.
Speaking of ruby, hypothetically, Ruby Wines was really involved in hypothetically
If they wanted to
stocking
do
said
something
bags
nice.
and wanted to maybe donate all these things that could hypothetically encourage people to support the Food Bank of Western Mass.
Blackberry, pepper.
Pepper is a big one for me with
that's-
Syrah.
Yep, and it's a little brambly, green olive.
A little tobacco, a little tar.
So the beauty of the Northern Rhone, the Mistral winds come down the Rhone from, I believe, Switzerland, and it keeps the one tiny hilltop, like we're talking like 130 hectares. So there are estates in Bordeaux that are bigger than the entire appellation of Hermitage. If you look at it, it looks like a dome. If you buy a Crozet Hermitage and you think you're getting a Hermitage, you're not. They're totally different expressions. The Hermitage is big and muscular and jammy, and I hate that word. It's a really, really big wine. This is a much like lighter, leaner, more fun version. And actually much less expensive version.
Technically speaking, the Hermitage is where they find Sir Aglavale when they're looking for him.
Khalees Smith's new book, Sir Morian, in stores now.
Because supposedly this is one of the oldest appellations in France. It's from the 10th century, and there was a hermit on the top of this tiny mountain making wine. If you are into wine, it's one of those regions that you should treat yourself and buy yourself a bottle of wine. And it's not unreasonable. You know, if someone was hypothetically walking by on a beach and they saw 28 clams lying on the beach, that's
Maybe trade those in.
you could trade those in at Mr. Flintstone's wine shop.
Yabba dabba do that.
Yeah, yabba
No, I can't give you a call to action that way.
The structure works really well with the cheese. I love dry things with fat.
The white pepper and the hints of piney garrigue. It is so quintessentially Syrah.
Okay, the first Syrah from France, from Crozet Hermitage, is from Jaboulet, is affordable and delicious.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, sort of affordable. The Moulin Noir.
It's also bee approved. So if the bees drink it and I love French bees, you know how they are, snobs.
They're bays there.
Yeah, the bays. The only bay in my house is Beyonce.
Don't tell your
The one
bay
I'm-
that.
And the one I'm marrying, sorry.
Moving from Syrah to Shiraz, which is actually the same grape, just pronounced differently to make wine more confusing for people.
Syrah was brought to Australia in 1883. This is one of the oldest wine regions in Australia, and they have pre-phylloxera vines. So some of the oldest grapevines in the world are in Barossa.
What was it, the late 1800s?
Oh my God, am I not
There was a louse that almost wiped out all viticulture in Europe.
So these are pre-phylloxera vines.
So they survived because they were not in
Yeah.
Europe.
It's a really important wine area.
I am a sucker for some Australian Shiraz.
The blackberry is real intense on this one.
And if you thought there was tar
Yeah.
notes on the first one, it's really pronounced here.
These wines do smell similar to me, but the fruit on this, and again, we're talking warmer climate, is huge, much more huge, less restrained.
Doesn't go as well with the Gouda as the first one did,
right.
in my opinion. The Gouda dominates,
I
and
haven't gone there yet, but it goes really well with the sausage.
Yeah, you know what? You're right. This clobbers the Gouda.
Well, it doesn't have as much structure as the other one. Like, it's
Right.
big and it's got this really nice minerality to it, but it doesn't have, like, the other one is very straight line, so it gets to contain all that
Yeah.
fat from the Gouda and the smoke.
The acid is a little bit less, so the wine wanders on you. It's nonetheless delicious. It's just different. So Australia is also known for their beef and their sheep. So
their crocodile.
And their crocodile.
G'day.
So imagine a nice roasted crocodile with a good Shiraz and
cut
actually.
it up with a real knife.
Hey, that's a real knife.
That's not a knife.
You missed it.
Come
I
on.
did. That went right over my head. God
Yeah.
damn it.
That's a knife.
I hate
Do I need to make a shrimp on the
You know
Barbie
what?
joke for
know
you?
what?
Please
Yes.
don't. Please
no,
don't.
And also,
Speaking of Barbie, hypothetically, somebody's going to dress up as Weird Barbie for the March for the Food Bank, which is happening in a week and a
hypothetically,
half.
Barbie has a shopping cart, and if Barbie wanted to do something really good, she would push a shopping cart a really long time. Maybe not in heels, although she should. Anyway, or Birks.
Definitely not.
Once again, they are both delicious. We've all kind of agreed that we all tend towards old world wines.
The three
not
of
this
you.
one.
I tend to
She
New
likes a little
World.
New
I thought
World
you were the one
action.
that likes Spanish wine so much.
I do, but in general, I tend to New World.
Oh, okay.
Fine, Khalees.
And there's nothing wrong with
she's
that.
always got, she's always got to make a point.
I drink the wine from where the Moors were and just leave that where that was.
It's time to vote.
All right, I don't want to vote.
The Thunderdome!
I genuinely don't know which one to choose.
Oh.
They do
Oh, that's
such
fantastic.
distinctly
That's
different
awesome.
things.
Such a great long-term love affair with the Torbeck. that I'm going to just go ahead and pick it.
I'm going to violate everything in my conscience and what I said at the beginning of this, which is that I think I know which one I'm going to pick. And I am also going to vote for the Australian Torbeck.
Torbeck. High five.
High five.
I always choose Old World wines. And this one actually is probably the most difficult wine Thunderdome we've done. And I am going to stick with Old World wines.
Okay, Trader. More like gross Hermitage.
In this Fab 413 role reversal, I'm gonna stick with you. Like, I like New World wines, but there's something especially about going back where, like, that structure turned into delicacy, and I like when things are a little bit delicate. Oh, the coin is out. This is what happens. I just sent Nirvani Williams a text early on when we got here, like, you might need to be our tiebreaker.
You may hear Nirvani Williams as a tiebreaker on this segment sometime in the
that
future.
would be so fun.
Who's going to call this?
All right, so heads is Old World, tails is New World. Do it.
Heads.
Oh!
Down we go,
I'm
Monty.
afraid to say my observation about this coin toss
Why?
because I've yet to lose one.
Solid draw. That's a good sign.
What it means is that both these wines are fabulous.
Yeah.
Both these wines are fabulous, but the winner is Jaboulet.
Gros Hermitage.
Hermitage.
Syrah Shiraz.
I love the juxtaposition of Old World, New World, because it brings a very natural part of the wine conversation to the table. If you know you're going to be trying several things, it's really fun to sort of climb the ladder and climb back down the ladder and go back again.
One opportunity, opening a bunch of bottles and tasting through and tasting it with different foods. Thanksgiving. There's not one perfect Thanksgiving wine. The best thing you can do is get a bunch of wines, open them all up, mix and match, pair, go all over the place.
art
It's
of
super
pairing
fun.
wines with Thanksgiving, though, is not pairing it with the bird. It's pairing it with all the sides.
Ding.
Also, the best answer is, what wines do you like? Don't beat yourself up about it. If you like it, if it goes with turkey, that's the wine that you should have.
Yeah.
Drink what you like, because it's more about sharing it with the people you love than it is about being right about which wine goes with what.
Everybody's palate is special.
And in theory, it could be more of like less of a palate thing and more of a spiritual, emotional thing where you're like, this wine is here because I made a contribution at a market in Northampton or Florence where 100% of that $100 went to the Food Bank of Western Massachusetts,
Where
which
other
created
people can now celebrate Thanksgiving.
right, and then that provides 300 meals and may win me an opportunity to pick an hour's worth of music on WRSI 93.9 The River with Morning Steve.
Yeah, the golden
Morning
ticket.
Steve.
The golden ticket.
Hypothetically, there's a golden
yeah,
ticket in one of these
hypothetically.
hypothetical bags that there are only 100 of that are at these two places, and it might just be the perfect Thanksgiving wine that's in there too.
I mean, really, the best wine for Thanksgiving is the one that lets you deal with your relatives. That's sometimes called
vodka.
bourbon.
Up next, it's Live Music Friday with the Forest Avenue String Band, who are doing a benefit for Stone Soup Cafe in Greenfield, along with Stone Soup's director, Kirsten Levitt.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM. Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. I'm Monty Belmonte.
And I'm Khalees Smith. This Sunday, November 12th at 3 p.m. at the All Souls Church in Greenfield, the Forest Avenue String Band will play a benefit concert for the Stone Soup Cafe.
The Forest Avenue String Band joins us in the studio for Live Music Friday, as does the executive director and executive chef of the Stone Soup Cafe, Kirsten Levitt. But first, some music. Take it away, Forest Avenue String Band. The Forest Avenue String Band, featuring Eveline McDougall on fiddle and accordion, Desi Lowett on fiddle, Dan Frank on mandolin, and a hand-cranked hurdy-gurdy. Am I getting that wrong, Eveline?
Well, he's not playing mandolin right this second, but yes, he's playing the hurdy-gurdy.
Yeah,
And
so
he
that's
brought
what-
it because he remembers that you liked it.
I love hurdy-gurdy. I saw you on the streets of Northampton playing a hurdy-gurdy, and we did an impromptu interview on the street because there's that Donovan song, Hurdy-Gurdy Man, of course. Can you crank that for just 1 second again? This is like a hand crank. It's a string instrument, but you play it with a crank. It's really cool and weird and amazing.
Yeah. As far as I know, all hurdy-gurdies are hand cranked.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe there's an auto hurdy-gurdy at some point, but...
And we also have in the studio with us today John Clark on the electric bass because our guitar player Andy Van Ash broke his wrist.
Which is a shame. However,
It's a shame.
John Clark is one of the most esteemed jazz French hornists in the world.
In the world of all time.
Yeah, played with everybody from Miles Davis and Charles Mingus to LL Cool J. And when Avery Sharp was here getting ready for his show tonight, I was like, do you know John Clark? And he was like, we've gone on tour together. So he snuck up behind you while you were playing the bass. And then you had to play bass in front of one of the greatest jazz bass players of all time. So
Yeah, John and Avery are on the road with McCoy Tyner for a long time. So
yeah, that's amazing. So, and this Sunday at 3 at All Souls Church in Greenfield, the Forest Avenue String Band will be performing. Will John be there at that too? Or?
John will be there, yes.
Okay.
And we have an opening act, which is the fabulous
Fiery Hope Chorus.
formerly known as the Amandla Chorus.
Nice. And it's all to benefit the Stone Soup Cafe in Greenfield. And joining us is not only the executive director, but also executive chef in your chef token everything today, because this is your huge prep day, because Saturday is the big day for Stone Soup Cafe. Tell us, if people don't know, what Stone Soup Cafe's mission and vision is.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for having me today.
thank you for
and
coming.
you to the Forest Avenue String Band. I am so grateful for people who really want to support Stone Soup Cafe and share beautiful music and make our lives more enriched. So the Stone Soup Cafe mission is to create a community space where all people come together to share nourishment, connection, and learning for body, mind, and spirit. And the Stone Soup Cafe has been in operation for just about 12 years. And we serve a pay-what-you-can meal every Saturday from noon until 1:30. And ever since the pandemic, we've grown and grown and grown. And so there is no indoor dining. It's curbside pickup or delivery only. But every single week, it's a celebration meal. So this weekend, we're doing Indian food to celebrate Diwali tomorrow. And yes, there's quite a big prep crew back in Greenfield who are manning the ship without me, so I can be here with you. And thank you so much.
Where did the vision for this community meal that welcomes everybody, whether they need the idea of being of food in an emergency way or not, come from?
Right. So Bernie Glassman, who was an American Zen master and has passed away for several years now, and his student Jeff Bridges, yes, that guy,
Yes, the dude.
the dude,
Yeah.
conceived of a cafe where all people would come together to eat and have choice and be served with dignity, not just love. Because in Bernie's Buddhist practices of openness, bearing witness, and then moving into loving action, many of his students and himself had been on street retreats where they had partaken of what is traditionally called a soup kitchen. And there was lots of love, but no dignity. And he conceived this idea of creating tables where everyone sat together, where there were no blurred lines, and where people who could support the mission would, and people who couldn't support the mission would be able to eat, and that we would be staffed by volunteers. And I can tell you that last year we were just about 200 meals shy of 30,000 meals. Yes, that's one meal a week, but 30,000 meals in a year. We went from a staff of 5 to a staff of 15, but we still have another 70 plus volunteers between delivery drivers and food prep and distribution people on the curb, and our free store program, which is a community pantry program that anybody can come and partake of, which is held outdoors. it's a huge operation now. So it used to be like 25-ish people a week to serve about 100 people a week, and now it's more like 100 people a week to serve 600 meals.
Part of your program you haven't mentioned is the culinary. You have a school attached.
Yeah, so 2 years ago, we were really blessed to get a State of Massachusetts Community Empowerment and Reinvestment Program grant. And this dream that I had for many years came into being. And so we've had 2 cohorts, one each year, one in 22 and one this year in 23. Each of them have graduated 5 students who have gone out and now are working in the food industry in some capacity. And we are going to have a 3rd cohort in 2024. We just received the word that we have the Urban Agenda grant from the state of Massachusetts, as well as we have a partnership workforce development grant through the Franklin County Sheriff's Office. And so people who are leaving the carceral system who want to go into the food industry will have this 12-week course. And we were very lucky to have funding last year and this year that includes a stipend. So students who are selected to participate will be paid to come to school for the 12 weeks, as well as earn certificates. And it's a great program.
And you are the executive chef, so you're a great person to be at the helm of that to teach people who will go on into the restaurant industry.
Well,
as well.
I'm the head of school.
Okay, you're executive of everything.
I'm the head of school right now, and we have one constant instructor, Brandon Shanty, who is a veteran of many, like 25 plus years of restaurant, high-end restaurant and high-volume restaurant. And last year we were really blessed to have Amy Francis, who was the owner of the Belly of the Beast Eatery in Northampton. And Amy's gone on to do other things in the food industry. And so now we're about to post for a new chef instructor.
Okay, so if you're listening, we can't tell you to sign up for it, but know that exists.
It'll happen soon.
Kirsten Levitt, executive chef, executive director, and head of school at Stone Soup Cafe. A benefit for Stone Soup is happening this weekend at All Souls Church in Greenfield at 3 p.m. on Sunday, featuring the Forest Avenue String Band. I'll just tell you briefly that next week on the show, we're going to be talking more about hunger and how it affects our area. We're going to be diving down into the policy issues surrounding hunger and nutrition. We're going to talk about hunger and its effects in the city we are in right now, Springfield specifically. Do you want to thank anybody before we let them take it away for the end of the show there, Khalees?
No, thanks to the whole team for making this whole tiring work week happen.
Yeah, we had election night. It's been a long week.
It's been a long week.
Once again, thank you to Dan Frank, Desi Lowett, Eveline McDougall, and John Clark, who are making up the Forest Avenue String Band. Thanks for listening to the Fabulous 413, and we say farewell with their beautiful music.
Yay!
Mandolin now, no hurdy-gurdy.
Yeah, so I think they're just going to be playing. They got the live band in right now. I think they're really just going to be playing until 58:30. So you'll just be hearing music, and I'll fade them down and put you on 58:30. One more from our wonderful string band playing Sunday at All Souls for Stone Soup.
And this is, speaking of keeping it local, this is by Keith Murphy of Brattleboro, the Hopavasi Waltz.